What's up, everyone? It's Oscar here with XPickle. Today we have a really special guest with us here in the show, Drew Danzeisen, who is the founder of the Pickleball House. Hopefully, I pronounced your last name correctly, Drew. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Danzeisen.
Danzeisen. All right, all
Yeah.
right. Well, man, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me here, Oscar. I'm really pumped for this interview and I appreciate you having me on here.
Awesome, awesome. So, man, tell us a little bit about yourself. So, where are you from? Where are you currently at? And how did pickleball came into your life?
Well, I'm originally from Las Vegas. Well, back before then, I was born in Jersey. So born in Atlantic City, New Jersey, raised
Okay.
in Las Vegas. And then from there, I moved out to San Diego right after graduating high school to play college baseball. So I come from a background of like that's very sport heavy, playing
Okay.
baseball my whole life, soccer my whole life, or football. I'm gonna call it football because I'm here in Miami and I'm very international when it comes to sports. So I'm gonna call it football, not the American soccer. And then playing tennis as well. So I come from a sport background.
Okay.
I'm currently based in Miami, but I've moved around quite a bit over the last few years, just being in the industry I've been in and in sports and Web3 and NFTs, and now in pickleball is
Okay.
bringing me all around the country.
What
So
position do you play in baseball? I used to play. I'm from Venezuela, and in Venezuela we're big in baseball.
of course.
So I play baseball and tennis until I was like 10 years old, and then I decided to go with 100% tennis. But so what position do you play?
So I was a shortstop. So
Shortstop.
so
I
following
wa-
baseball and knowing all about Venezuela, the Latin American countries, I mean, that's the culture that's the culture that really brings the real culture to baseball is what I'm trying to say. To America's pastime. So and brings the swagger, the vibes, the music, the everything. So the
That's
suave.
that's lovely to hear, man. It's lovely to hear. Yeah, I was playing third base. It was tough,
Okay.
man. It was tough. Didn't like it too much. Some people
Third
say that
base.
it's one of like the hardest positions to play. Do you agree or no?
Oh, the hot corner. Yeah, of course. I
The
mean, it's
hot the
coming
hot
in.
corner. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how they call it. Yeah, the hot corner.
Yep. Yeah. Let's see.
Oh,
Let's see Jose Altuve switch over to the hot corner.
oh yeah, he's back. I saw like he did like a home run the other day. So
Yep.
I live in Houston, so I'm a huge Astros and Altuve fan.
Yep. Yep. So I mean that connection there. I mean Altuve, Venezuela, Houston, H Town. So yep.
There you go. There you go. You should
Um.
you should you should come by, man, to
Yeah.
H
I
Town.
actually I haven't been to Houston ever.
Okay, okay.
So yeah. That's
Well, you're invited, man.
all right.
We'll play baseball and pickleball.
All right. Deal. I'm in.
So do
So
you do you play pickleball yourself?
I do. Yeah, I am a full-time addict and cult member of the pickleball cult. So I will admit that. I admit that to all people that I am an addict, and usually I start with that. I tell people I'm an addict, and then they give me a weird look. And they're like, "What are you talking about?" Because I see on the table you don't have a drink, like you don't drink, and what does that mean? Like, what does it mean when you tell us you're an addict? And then I say I'm addicted to pickleball. And they're like, oh, okay. So yeah, that I have done that before.
That's funny.
One of the times it was to a girl that I was trying to talk to. So yeah, I got some weird looks. Yeah, so I am a full-time addict and cult member of the pickleball cult. I started playing pickleball, I guess it was a few years ago, but it was just with like on a family trip. So I'm sure you've heard this similar story where people started playing pickleball a few years ago and didn't really get into it. And then now that it went crazy and it started popping up
Yeah.
everywhere, people got into it more. So my story is when I moved back to San Diego in August. So I was traveling for a couple of years, going to conferences and events and all around the country, LA, New York, San
Okay.
Diego, Miami, Denver, Vegas, Seattle, like every single pocket or every corner of the US I was traveling to, just in the industry I was in, and I needed to settle back down. And I settled back down in San Diego, which is where I spent 7 years during college and playing college baseball, and growing my professional network. And I moved to a spot called Carlsbad, which is in North San Diego.
Okay.
And little did I know, well, I went to this park that was right down the street from my house called Poinsettia Park. And I was trying to go get back into tennis because tennis was a networking sport and I'm terrible at golf. So I wanted to get back into a networking sport and tennis was one that I liked. And so I was going to play tennis. And as you know, being a singles player and playing tennis is like, it's not very accessible when going to a park because being a single tennis player, you basically, the only thing you can do is serve by yourself.
Yeah.
And so you have to know people to be able to go and play and hit. And so that's what I was running into with tennis is like, I really had to like go and meet people. But it was kind of hard to do that in the sport. And then I saw pickleball on the same property on the park. I said, okay, I want to try that because that looks fun and I want to get it and get more into it. And sure enough, I started going there more. I lived 5 minutes away from the park, so that was awesome. And it turned out to be one of the biggest and probably best public rec parks in the country, I'd say, hands down, of like putting yourself in the mix and learning how to lose pretty quick as a beginner and just getting into the sport. And then, well, I don't say that. I don't want to say that to stir people away, but I think the challenge court is what I'm talking about. So there's 6 courts, 2 of them are challenge courts, 4 of them are social courts. And the challenge courts was the ringer. Just learning how to play there because I went straight to the challenge because I come from a sports background. I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to learn how to play pickleball. And like it took losing for a couple months to these guys that were 4-0s, 5-0s, pros, because competition wise, I don't think there's any public rec park in the country that can hang with that level of competition. Like if you can learn there at Poinsettia Park in Carlsbad, San Diego, you can learn how to play pickleball and like really you can hang anywhere.
What's the name of the park again?
Poinsettia.
Okay.
So it's a public park and literally you can go there any time in the day and you can have 4-0s, 5-0s, pros all playing there on the challenge courts.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you're saying that that's the most competitive.
I think so. It's a pretty bold statement for a public rec park, but I think that area that it's in, it's right down the street from a very well-known tennis, well, used to be tennis, now full blast pickleball facility in Bobby Riggs.
Okay.
It's in Encinitas, and the family that runs Bobby Riggs is actually Callan Dawson's family. So Callan Dawson, the MLP player, on the Orlando Squeeze. Yeah, so it's a very well-known hotbed, I'd say, in Southern California for pickleball.
Okay,
and
you guys hear from Drew.
So after playing there for a couple months and losing my face off and learning the actual game and learning how to do a drop shot and driving and dinking, I finally learned the game and then was able to beat the people that were beating me for a couple months. So yeah, it was really fun to kind of grow and like progress in the sport in a very quick time period, just by going straight to the challenge courts.
I have to check it out, man. I love San Diego. It's such a beautiful city, right? It's one of like the most actually most beautiful cities I've ever been. I got an aunt that lives there, so I guess I gotta go there and check that out.
You definitely got to go.
See if what you're saying is truth.
Yeah.
So but you currently live in Miami, right? How is the pickleball scene in Miami?
The pickleball scene is good. It's a very strong community here. But compared to other large markets, actually, there's definitely a lot of room to grow here in the city in Miami, and in all the different pockets of the city, of course. So there's Miami Beach, which is actually where I am. And then there's the downtown area, there's Brickell, there's Little Havana. So there's courts, and the city is doing a lot of great work to be able to keep up with the demand and like the need for pickleball courts, putting them in public parks. I think that it's a little behind when it comes to other cities as far as like having private and indoor locations. So that's also something that I know like there's a few people that are looking into, but it's a city that has a lot of culture, is very heavy in sports, as we kind of talked about before we got on here. There's a very big padel influence here.
Yeah.
in Wynwood and in like at the Reserve, which is a new facility. But as far as pickleball, there's a lot of room for growth here in Miami compared to the other larger pickleball markets. I mean, just here
Definitely.
in the same state in Florida, being Naples, Del
Yeah.
Rey, Boca, um, Boynton Beach, all of that, like northern Fort Lauderdale.
No, yeah, it could definitely be a good opportunity for like this investors that wanna get into pickleball, right? As we've been seeing in the last couple months.
Correct. Correct.
So how do you see like you said you just mentioned, right, like Padel is big in Miami. Do you think that could be an issue that for like the growth of pickleball there?
I don't think so. No, I think there's room for both. Because padel, of course, is a very um, it's an expensive sport to build. So I think
Yeah,
that's where pickleball has an edge. Is where pickleball is a little more excessive when it comes to the build out because padel is more expensive. It needs the walls, and you definitely need a higher ceiling. Whereas I mean pickleball, of course, you just need the net, you need the surfaces. It's either it can be a permanent or it's now we've seen, which is who we've been working with in many projects, is Pickle Roll, doing a portable court surface that are now doing these pop-up venues, pop-up events,
yeah.
pop-up pickleball experiences around the country, where basically all you need is just the flat ground, the cement, the hardwood, concrete, asphalt underneath to be able to, and it has to be of course flat as possible, to lay the surfaces down.
And and that's what you're doing with the pickle house, or am I mistaken there?
Correct. Yep, that is what we've been doing with the pickleball house.
And I guess that leads us to my next question. So tell us a little bit more about what's the pickle house?
Yes. Well, the pickleball house. Well, first of all, I mean, just being in the sport for, I mean, it was literally only 6 months, 6 to 8, yeah, 6 months, coming around January or February of 2023. So that was where I mean, I started in playing pickleball in August and I went from 3 days a week to 3 to 5 days a week to 5 to 7 to basically like 7 days a week. And January came around, and coming from the international sport background that I come from, working at the Olympics, working Super Bowl satellite events, NBA All Star satellite events, MLB All Star, just being around the sports industry, I see that there are a million, like you go to these larger events, and there's so many satellite events that are brands trying to activate and like capture the audience that's there and create experiences that are all around the city of these major events. And so coming around Super Bowl, and just being aware of the growth of the sport and the crossover that's coming from all across everywhere getting into pickleball here in the United States. I mean, the crossover from sports, from executives, from switching over to golf, to former athletes playing. I saw an opportunity to create a networking event that's around pickleball that's at the biggest events in sports and entertainment. And the background behind that is like when I got the pickleballhouse.com domain, I couldn't sleep because I knew of how strong of a brand property that could be. Just thinking of these events that are at the Olympics. So the Heineken House is the biggest activation at the Olympics. Team USA, Spain, every single country at the Olympics has a hospitality venue that they call the house. So the Spain house, the Canada house, every Mexico house, Japan house, China house. That is their activation. And then there's the Heineken house, which is the brand play. And then you go to the Super Bowl or any other event, major event, and Red Bull has a house. South by Southwest, there's a million of these events that have the house. And there
Okay.
wasn't anything that was called the Pickleball House. So I got the Pickleball House domain, and I knew that this could be something as a satellite event to these major events that are bringing in all these people across sports, culture, music, entertainment, travel, business. And with the sport now being a new networking sport where people are traveling to go to these events, they're not necessarily bringing their clubs everywhere, and they
Yeah.
don't have 4 to 5 hours to spend out on a court. So what I created with the Pickleball House was a pop-up pickleball experience that combines pickleball and networking. that's invite only for athletes, executives, entrepreneurs, creators, influencers, and then sports, entertainment, and travel industry professionals.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So can you I guess like so what's a satellite event?
So a satellite event is an event that goes on while a major event is in town. So think of it
Okay.
being the main event is in the middle, and exterior stuff that's going on in the city at different venues across the city is technically called a satellite event.
And the
So you look
pickleball
at
house will be a satellite event, right?
correct. As of right
Yeah.
now, it's a satellite event that's coming around when the Super Bowl is in town, when F1, when NBA Summer League, when US Open of tennis, in Miami Art Basel is one we're looking into. And we're looking into other events across sports and entertainment, businesses, conferences where we could do a pop-up pickleball experience. But we launched 3 weeks before Super Bowl this year, 2023. That was in Phoenix. And that was our first event. So I said, no matter what, like with everybody in town, executives, athletes, influencers, and everybody interested in pickleball from an investment perspective or playing, like they all play pickleball now. I just saw an opportunity to create this event. And like, even though it was 3 weeks out, I needed to do it at Super Bowl in Phoenix. So we launched it at the Orchard. We had awesome people show up. We had athletes, executives, brands. We had a couple sponsors. And then from there, from that successful event, even though it was like a small amount of people there, it was the right people that, like, of course, to build momentum on what we were doing for the next one, which was 83 days out at Miami F1. And that's exactly what we just did in Miami for F1 weekend, taking over the 19th floor of the JW Marriott Marquis.
Yeah, I was able to see some pictures of that. It looked awesome. And I guess Carlos, my friend from La Cocina, attended. So he told
Yes,
me it was pretty cool, and that's what is getting me to go to the next one, which I believe it's in Las Vegas, correct?
Las Vegas for the 14th of July, and that's during the same weekend as NBA Summer League. So it's the last weekend of NBA Summer League, and also the WNBA All Star, which is for the first time in the same city, in the same area, same weekend as as NBA. But first, before we move into anything else, like on Vegas or next step, like I have to give a shout out to Carlos from La Cocina who introduced us.
Yeah, no,
And
of course.
yeah, brought this together. And of course, is a really good friend of mine in the space or in the industry in pickleball. And I love to see what they're doing. Of course, growing the Latin American community in pickleball and doing everything to create that content to basically grow the sport to Spanish speaking countries, to Spanish speaking players, and of course, highlighting the growth in that area. So yeah, La Cocina is, if you haven't checked out La Cocina yet, definitely do that.
No, of course, and yeah, shout out to Carlos, I guess, from my side. Thanks for putting this together, and hopefully I can see you soon, my friend. And I know you're
Yeah.
gonna see this, so.
Yeah.
So I guess do you want to comment on anything else on on the the events?
Yeah, no, we're just very much looking forward to come to the big cities around the big events. And also looking for all pop-up opportunities. It was really cool to see the traction that we got and the momentum that we're able to build after Miami F1, and then just having the people that we had at that event, all of the partners involved that we brought together, that just created an overall sport and networking experience that nobody has really seen before in the sport of pickleball. So it was just it was cool to see the level. I mean, you look back at it and it was about 150 people, 150 to 200 people, and 40% of that was the target market that we've been going after is founder, owner, CEO, C-level. Another 40% of that was director level. So just the overall opportunity here to bring people together through the sport of pickleball is like, it's a sport like no other. Like you can't really do this in a pop-up environment and pop-up experience with any other sport. And I think that's what's special about it. And also the accessibility. So I think one thing that was really special about that weekend is we took the courts from the 19th floor of the JW Marriott Marquis the next day. So basically, this is another shout out to Pickleball, the pickleball surfaces.
Okay.
So Pickleball, basically they were the court suppliers for the pickleball house, and so they came in and installed the day before, and then afterwards at 7 p.m. the minute ours was done at the Marriott, they packed them up, and they were there from 10 p.m. to 3:30 in the morning, basically reinstalling the courts in Hialeah, here in Miami, which is a suburb of Miami, and we brought them to a local park and we donated them long term. We hosted a kids clinic that day with our beneficiary for the whole weekend with UD Foundation. So that is Udonis Haslam's foundation. Udonis Haslam is a 20+ year career with the Miami Heat. His full career has been with the team in the city that he grew up in, which is awesome to see. And they're actually just going into last night. They just won the Eastern Conference Finals, heading to the NBA Finals. And so working with their organization for that weekend and having like a local Miami connection, but also working with an organization that's very focused on providing opportunities for kids through sports. And those kids that don't necessarily have the opportunity to get those, like either lower income or inner city. And so what we did is we hosted a clinic the next day after the networking event at the Pickleball House. We hosted a clinic in Hialeah at Mylander Park. And Dick's Sporting Goods Foundation was also involved, Chick-fil-A. And these are all partners that I'm just very, very appreciative of, just able for this whole weekend to pull that off. And this is like Duper, Yola, JW Marriott Marquis, Hyper Ice, like just bringing all of those partners together through that weekend and creating just the experience that we did with both the Pickleball House and the clinic. The next day is like, that's what we're looking to put on repeat for every city that we go to in Las Vegas, New York, of course, repeating in Las Vegas and Miami again later this year. So yeah, I think that's the overall experience that we're creating with the Pickleball House. But the theme here is just, I mean, bringing people together through this sport, and there's no other sport that's like it that can bring people from 6 years old to 90 years old.
Yeah. No, man, like, yeah, it sounds like you're partnering with the big boys, with big brands, right? You mentioned like Chick-fil-A, Yola. So, man, congrats for that. And hopefully you just keep growing and growing, man.
That's the plan. I mean, we're gonna be around for a while, and yeah, go ahead. What were you saying there?
No, yeah, I was gonna mention one last thing that we talk of record here. You said that the Pickle House is sponsoring a tournament, right?
The Pickleball House is sponsoring a tournament. It is La Pregunta tournament in so it's in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico. So it's the largest tournament in Puerto Rico that's happening this weekend. So what they're building down there is awesome to see as well, and we want to support that. But also, this is my first time being in Puerto Rico, and coming from a baseball background and listening to. I mean, I've listened to reggaeton for the last 10 to 15 years. Solo escucho reggaeton. So
you're gonna have fun then. You're gonna have fun then.
Yeah. So
a lot of Bad Bunny. I'm guessing.
Mucho Bad Bunny, Anuel, Ozuna, Nicky Jam, of course, all those guys from Farruko, Mike Towers, Jay Cortez. I mean, all of those guys that come from Puerto Rico, and just being in the Latino culture. Just listening to them and that business and that's where I see the biggest crossover in the sport of pickleball. And that's why I love to see what you're doing with what Carlos is doing with La Cocina is the crossover. It's not just an American sport. It's not, I mean, it's America's fastest growing sport, but the opportunity here to bring the whole world together through a sport that's very accessible is huge. It's huge. So going down there and playing in, but also sponsoring and like having the Pickleball House support the largest tournament in Puerto Rico is something like, that's what, of all things, of baseball, reggaeton, everything, just traveling, pickleball was the first thing to bring me down to Puerto Rico. Yeah. So yeah, I'm pumped for that.
Pickleball is doing great things to all of us that we're all in the industry, right? So Thank you, Pickleball. And well, man, thank you so much for your time. It was great to have you here. Great to learn more of what you're doing with the Pickleball House. And man, you're doing great. And hopefully you keep growing. The sky is the limit, right?
No, I mean, this is all you, Oscar. Like, I thank you for having me on XPickle. And I mean, it's just like yourself, people like yourselves that are continuing to grow the sport and get the word out there and introduce people and interview people like myself. And that's the most important part, is continuing to just push the sport that we all love. So yeah, I just congratulate you and just thank you for having me on here.
Oh man, thanks to you. And hopefully I can meet you in person soon in that Las Vegas event.
Vamos.
All right. Thanks, Drew.
All
Appreciate it,
right.
man.
All right.
Have
Thank
fun.
you.
Have
Muchas
fun in Puerto
gracias.
Rico, okay?
All right. I'll try to.
See you, man.
All right. See ya.
Bye.